Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Josh, and this is your stimulus check update for the next stimulus package for Thursday, October 1st. I hope everyone is off to a good and safe start to the Thursday so far. It's hard to believe that we're already starting the month of October, and these relief negotiations are still going on. In this video, I'll be discussing both the first and second stimulus check. I'll also be discussing unemployment, if Mnuchin and Pelosi can finally reach a bipartisan agreement, and then I'll be wrapping up this video by answering some of the comments and questions that I received in my previous video. But first, if you wouldn't mind real quickly liking this video, giving me a big thumbs up. It really just helps with the YouTube algorithm in terms of pushing this video out to other viewers like you, and hopefully helping other people like you as well. Okay, so I'm going to start today's video real quickly with just another update on the federal unemployment insurance benefits. On the screen, you'll see the 7 states that still haven't started paying out benefits to their residents yet. At the moment, Virginia has a payment date scheduled for October 15th, and Wisconsin has a payment date set for October 31st. We can only hope that the other 5 states begin paying out their benefits in the next few weeks. Also, the majority of the states that started sending out benefits to their residents have already depleted their funds, so now we can only hope that Mnuchin and Pelosi can compromise on a new bill to pass it through Congress very soon. In stimulus-related news, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin met once again on Wednesday, where they had hoped to finally reach a bipartisan agreement. Unfortunately, the talks fell short once again. So, since no agreement was reached, she went ahead and announced the House would be voting on the bill, even though there was no bipartisan agreement actually made. And this is just the silliest thing to me. It's all politics. Nancy Pelosi and every single lawmaker knows this bill won't pass in the Republican-controlled Senate, so other than for political reasons, there's real no point in even voting on it. But unfortunately, this is what it's coming down to: politics. And this goes for both sides. They both want to point their finger and tell the American public that the other side is denying additional aid to them. At least on the positive side of things, both Pelosi and Mnuchin did say their talks would continue. Nancy Pelosi said, quote, "Secretary Mnuchin and I had an extensive conversation, and we found areas where we are seeking further clarification. Our conversation will continue." Secretary Mnuchin said on the meeting, "We made a lot of progress over the past few days. We still don't have an agreement, but we have more work to do. And we're going to see where we end up." On the negative side of things, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said the two sides were very far apart. Quite frankly, it's doubtful that any deal made by Pelosi and Mnuchin, unless it's a much lower number, could even pass the Republican-controlled Senate. The counteroffer made to Pelosi by Mnuchin was reportedly similar to the $1.5 trillion proposal developed by the Problem Solvers Caucus. $1.5 trillion is what Donald Trump said he'd be willing to sign, and also a higher offer than what Mnuchin had before in negotiations with Pelosi. However, even $1.5 trillion is a good bit higher than what most Republicans in the Senate would approve of, so it's hard saying whether it would even pass even if Pelosi did agree to that number. It might pass, but it probably wouldn't pass with flying colors. Right now, we have a couple of different barriers the two sides need to get through. For Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they contest to include legal liability protections for businesses in the bill. They feel that workers are already going through a tough time with everything going on, and they don't want to give them any fewer protections. For Republicans, it's aid for state and local governments, in addition to the federal unemployment insurance benefits. Republicans still feel that $436 billion going towards state and local governments is too high and would like to see that number just a little bit lower. Additionally, they feel that giving unemployed workers $600 per week is simply too much as well. They'd like to see that number closer to $400 per week to ensure that people aren't receiving more money on unemployment than what they were at their prior jobs. Mnuchin believes that if you're earning more on unemployment than what you were at your prior job, then it provides a disincentive to return to work. The good thing here is that even though the two sides do have differences, they're pretty minor, all in all. Steven Mnuchin has said over and over that there are a lot of things that the two sides do have in common for the next bill. There is a lot of bipartisan support on many policies, including stimulus payments and extension of the federal unemployment benefits, money for the airlines, and many more things. The two sides both are very hopeful that they can get something done, and we can only hope that they'll put their best foot forward to get something passed. It seems that even though there is a lot of political turbulence on both sides, At the very least, Stephen Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi have a good working relationship. Because one could say, well, why isn't Donald Trump more involved in these talks with Nancy Pelosi? Well, most likely, if he was, the two sides would end up storming out of the room within the first 10 minutes because their working relationship isn't the best, to say the least. So it's probably a good thing we have Mnuchin as the mouthpiece for the White House, because otherwise, nothing would probably ever get done. There's simply way too much hate between Trump and Pelosi. Now, if they can work out their differences on liability protections, unemployment, and state and local government aid, then we could end up having a deal pretty quickly. What it's really going to come down to, though, is how willing the House Speaker is on lowering her $2.2 trillion bottom line. In the past, she's been very insistent on keeping it at $2.2 trillion, being that she's already come down from the $3.4 trillion number from before. Pelosi and other Democrats strongly feel that $2.2 trillion is the very minimum that needs to be spent in the next bill. Any less than that, they feel, is simply insufficient. The problem with that number, even if Mnuchin does agree on something at that figure, is again, the Republican majority Senate. They just won't have the votes to push it through if the figures are that high. Personally, I still am optimistic that the two sides will reach an agreement. There's a lot riding on the line with many Senate Republicans up for re-election, and they don't want to be seen as the ones who are rejecting more aid to Americans. So in the end, it's possible that some of them may end up approving a bill higher than they normally would, but that might require Pelosi and Mnuchin to meet somewhere in the middle of their two offers. That would mean a bill may be finalized at around $1.8 trillion, but again, that's all speculation. Also, since Republicans don't have a huge majority in the Senate, it's possible they could pass a bill with very few Republicans being on board with it. As long as the 45 Democrats in the Senate approve the bill, we would only need to see a handful of Republicans approve of it. If Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump encourage just enough Republicans to get on board with the plan, there should be enough, but we'll just have to wait and see. Since we have absolutely no control over this, all we can continue to do is hang in there, stay strong, and hope for the best. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm just going to give a quick update on the first round of stimulus payments because unfortunately, even though most people have already received their first stimulus check, there are still millions of people who are still waiting for it. If you haven't received your first payment, more than likely it's because you were either claimed as a dependent on someone else's recent tax return or you haven't filed a tax return within the last 2 years. If you're not on Social Security benefits and you haven't filed a tax return within the last 2 years, then you should go ahead and quickly fill out the non-filers tool by October 15th in order to receive your payment this year. Otherwise, unfortunately, you'll have to wait all the way until next year to claim a $1,200 credit on your tax returns. Additionally, if you have a spouse that had past due child support, so you had your stimulus payment garnished as well, you should expect to receive your payment very, very soon. Now, if you filled out the injured spouse allocation form, you should have already received your payment by now. However, the IRS did say that even if you didn't fill out that form, you should still be receiving your payment very soon. Finally, if you have any questions in regards to your first stimulus payment because you haven't received it and you believe that you should have received it by now, you can either ask me in the comment section below or you can call the IRS at 1-800-919-9835, and the only recommendation that I would have for you is to call just a little bit earlier in the day just to avoid those longer hold times. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm just going to answer some of the comments and questions that I received in my previous video. And if you have any other comments or questions for me, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I do try to answer as many of the comments and questions as I possibly can, but for those comments and questions I'm not able to respond to, I do try to pick some of the more popular ones to answer in the next video in video form. Okay, so without further ado, let me go ahead and jump into the first comment of today's video, which is from Roxana. Roxana says, "Hi Josh, I was texting you to ask when is the soonest we can hope for another round of stimulus checks. Thank you so much for your question, and the soonest, by my estimate, would be at some point in late October. If the two sides do agree on a bill this week, we could probably get it passed through the House and the Senate by mid-October. Once the bill passes the House, the Senate, and is signed by the President, then stimulus checks will go out as quickly as the following week. As usual though, nothing is guaranteed, but we have to keep hoping for the best." Okay, moving right along to the next question of today's video, which is from Charlie. Charlie says, "What happened to the $300 billion for checks as per President Trump?" Okay, thank you so much for your question, Charlie. So, President Trump originally said there was $300 billion sitting in an unused account that he would like to use in another executive order for a second round of direct payments to American families. Unfortunately, after his law team looked into it, this was not something he could do without first having congressional approval. This wouldn't usually be a problem, as it doesn't seem like many lawmakers are against a second round of stimulus payments per se, but Nancy Pelosi is against passing a skinny deal, so Trump never ended up getting the approval from Congress that he needed. With that said, we can only hope that Congress will finally be able to agree on a bill very, very soon. Alright, so on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. If you did enjoy the content in this video and you'd like to see more videos like it, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It is completely free to do so and it's a great support to me. Also, if you'd like to receive one free stock from Webull, valued all the way up to $1,600, please feel free to claim that free stock by clicking the link in the description box below. And until next time, I'll see you guys and I hope you have a great day today.